Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Steve Barber. And joining me as a co-host is the man who is wearing a matching shirt for the first time in over 30 years, Waylon Davis.
Hey, everybody.
How you feeling today?
Better. Body aches are gone. Still had the fatigue and the cough has kind of settled in my chest, but better than I have been in 10 days. So
I'd say it's the shirt making you feel better. So
I unplugged my
the light.
Yeah, the light. It was like it was
like
just like taking over my face. So.
Yeah, it was actually kind of cool looking, looked kind of like an alien. So and lo and behold, Tuesday, I was going to say Monday we're recorded. No, it was actually Tuesday we recorded. We said we had no idea what we were going to talk about Thursday yet because with COVID happening, we've had to cancel a few shows because me having it and then you having it. And, so we're like, because it's kind of hard to plan. That's why we have not had any interviews lined up as well because we've had to cancel shows. We don't want to cancel on somebody else.
Right.
And lo and behold, the very next day, it was like pop, 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 all sorts of news stories happen. And two of them fairly were pretty big news stories. Another one that kind of slid under the radar because it was more of a timing issue than anything else.
Yeah.
But the first thing, it was when you texted me and you said Shane McMahon has been released by the WWE.
Yep.
And my immediate response was, "You're joking."
Nope. I was watching when I texted you. It was yesterday morning, and I was watching What Culture Wrestling News on YouTube, and they had that's the first that I'd heard of the story, and a lot of it Shane brought on himself. I mean, I know we'll get into it, but some of the stuff that he booked himself to do in that match, things that he wanted to book himself to do in that match, is just beyond egotism.
Oh, I know. And we didn't realize how bad. I mean, we had a feeling Shane was doing some of the main booking on that because all of a sudden he's in the match for the first time ever. And then he's in the top three or last three or whatever you want to call it.
He was in the final three.
And it's like, what in the, and the Rumble itself, people are calling it like, some people call it the worst pay-per-view ever or premium live event, whatever. It's the worst one of their shows ever. Definitely the worst Rumble ever. Not just the two Rumble matches, but the entire card, with the exception of the first match. And now granted, Bobby, throwing some pretty good hits. That match was what we expected it to be. So that one wasn't necessarily a disappointment.
No.
But it still wasn't a great scientific, 5-star match.
Yeah.
But Shane, he brought it on himself.
Yep. Sorry.
I lost Waylon.
Hold on.
He's just talking in the dark. There he is.
There I am. Knocked the camera off, guys. Sorry about that.
He has returned. and we're still matching in our shirts. See, we're twins. Y'all just don't know it.
Yep.
So, Shane. I have a feeling there was probably more to it, than. I mean, granted, this is. I don't want to say this is like just a one-time incident. No, this is a pretty big one-time incident.
Oh, that, like I said, we'll get into it. There's several things that have come out that led to Vince himself making the call to release Shane. It was Vince who made the call.
Do we want to discuss it now, or do we want to, as we get into the main?
I mean, it's up to you. We can.
I'll give our contact information before we do our main story. Which, by the way, the main story, if you can't tell by the headline, is going to be why Brock Lesnar being the focal point is bad for business.
Mm-hmm.
And this is in response to an email we got from somebody who asked us not to use their real name, but we shall refer to him as Meathead because that's what he actually asked us to refer to him as.
Yep, that's what he asked for.
So, and a meathead is kind of a perfect name because it actually means someone with more muscles than brains. It's a natural, it's a natural term, and it's not something I made up. So, but go ahead with all the other information that you've heard.
Okay. Heard, like I said, saw this on What Culture Wrestling News yesterday morning. Shane was just trying to put it with the producers backstage. He was basically just blatantly rude and just ignored everything that every suggestion they came up with. He just pretty much shot it down because he was the lead writer for the Rumble that night. Who made that call? I have no idea. To bring Shane back in and be like, oh, well, you can be the lead writer. So Shane took that as, I'm going to book the entire Royal Rumble around myself. And there was a rumor, I haven't seen confirmation on this, and there was a rumor that Shane wanted to book himself to win the Rumble. It was bad enough he booked himself in the Rumble since he had never been in a Rumble before. He booked himself to outstrike Matt Riddle.
Oh,
that was his booking idea, to go strike for strike with Matt Riddle and outstrike Matt Riddle, who, for
he's
those
a
who don't
legitimate
know,
striker.
legitimate MMA striker. Booked himself to be in the final three. Just ridiculous stuff. There was past the Rumble, there had been talks that Shane was first, it was Shane wanted to book himself in a match with Austin Theory for WrestleMania. Then it changed, and when they were kicking around the idea of Seth Rollins winning the Universal title, then Shane wanted to book himself in a Universal title match at WrestleMania. Yeah. And
It's bad enough that he is still, I guess, holds the title of world's greatest wrestler or whatever.
Yeah, the best in the world. Yeah.
That's already bad enough. But yeah, continue on.
Adam Wilborn on no, it was Adam Wilborn. Well, he of course he's on there too. But they were talking about how Shane has just, he is, in his mind, he has built this reputation that he is like the hardest man on earth. Like, he's the toughest guy. He's trained with some MMA guys, and it's like Shane's believing his own hype is a lot of the problem. And Adam Wilborn said he's not even the toughest McMahon in the world. And but it's like, how do you just come in and book yourself? And Shane was always one of those people that always got irritated when people talked about nepotism. And it's like, what do you think this is? What do you think you just did? Yeah. And then, so Vince was the one who made the call, because Shane got like nuclear heat backstage for before the Rumble happened, after the Rumble, going into Raw the next night. And Vince made the call yesterday morning and wished him well in his future endeavors.
Wow. When you get future endeavored by your dad,
yeah,
that's pretty savage right there, actually.
Yeah. And now people are like, well, why is nobody worried about I saw this on Twitter, and it was the most ridiculous thing I think I've seen all week. People were like, well, why are people making fun of Shane because he got fired? You weren't making fun of the 100+ people that got fired last year. It's because Shane McMahon's worth $100 million. He'll be okay.
Yeah, he'll be all right.
Shane's gonna eat. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about Shane McMahon getting fired. but it's it's the other people that get fired in the middle of their contract when they have house payments and children to take care of, and their own health insurance because they're not the son of a billionaire and things like that. So it's like, just
And we were not making fun of Shane.
no,
You know, we
nobody
were
was
just
making fun of Shane, but Shane brought it on himself. He was being stupid and he got caught.
right. And Shane actually did something to get himself fired, unlike the people who were
Exactly.
just fired because they had to have the money cleared up to pay Brock Lesnar.
Yeah. I'm sorry though. I don't have any sympathy for someone that's worth $100 million losing their job.
Of course, this will actually help with their next quarter results.
Yeah.
One of their highest paid employees
Yep.
just got future endeavored.
Yeah.
So that'll free up. They're going to have more good quarterly results. And speaking of released wrestlers, yesterday also marked the 90-day mark for quite a few of the wrestlers that were released 90 days ago, including Keith Lee, including Ember Moon. I mean, those are the two that Keith Lee signed with somebody. It wasn't Game Changer. It was another. I think there's a P somewhere, like in one of the initials. I can't think of the.
Was it
name
PWG?
No, it wasn't Pro Wrestling Gorilla. It was. I would remember that one. Because that's such an interesting name. I'd have to look and find, because I just saw it was like a real quick article. And Ember Moon she may have signed with GCW. Like I said, don't quote me on that, but because I was thinking that'd be kind of cool if she showed up in the NWF, but that's not going to happen now. And I thought about, it was her. I was actually going to email and see if we can get her on the show, but she may have actually signed with Impact.
I'm not sure.
It was somebody. It was actually a company I had heard of. So, but I think a lot of those wrestlers. I mean, we knew they would find jobs.
Oh yeah.
And Keith Lee especially, because how do you go from being noticed at the Rumble in 2020, when meathead Brock Lesnar's in the ring going, "Oh, we got a big boy," and then all of a sudden, 2 years later, or less than 2 years later, year and a half later, all of a sudden he's just dropped.
Yeah. Yep.
But another wrestler who just left WWE and is signed with AEW and was going to be in their show last night, and then about 2 hours before the show started, he was all of a sudden released, and he was released like a boss because, okay, in this day and age, yes, I do realize that sometimes people can change. Don't get me wrong. But there's some things that if you go on social media, you better really think hard about what you're saying. You can't it's going to be really hard for you to come back and say, I don't think like that.
Yep.
If he would have actually, and of course we're talking about Brian Kendrick. He made some extremely anti-Semitic remarks. I'm assuming on Twitter, and I didn't even catch the year that he made them,
some were on Twitter, some were in some shoot interviews he had done years ago.
Oh, so this wasn't just Twitter then?
No, this wasn't just Twitter. These were like some of the stuff on Twitter is like transcripts from the shoot interviews that he had done.
And see, even that, I mean, that's not it wouldn't have made it, I guess, maybe as bad if he'd have said, I don't think like that anymore. I used to be stupid. Now I'm not.
Right. But he said, and he gave a very generic apology, in my opinion. He was just like, this is, I apologize for, for the things that I said, this isn't me. This was never me. And it's like,
this was you at some point.
This was you at some point in your life. It was you, because you wouldn't have said it. Nobody says those kind of things if they don't mean them.
Right.
That is not just something that you say for shock value. The things that he said about the Holocaust and the Holocaust victims, especially, it was just, I'm not going to repeat them because they're just disgusting. But people don't say things like that unless that's how they truly feel. And I feel like that's how he may not feel the same way now, but that's how he felt. And that is not something that people are going to give you a pass on.
Yeah, they won't.
No.
And
And
it
they
also,
shouldn't. And they
yeah,
shouldn't.
and like we were discussing before the show, it also probably doesn't help his case that Whoopi Goldberg had also said some remarks about the Holocaust,
Yeah. And she said
and
that, she said the Holocaust had nothing to do with race. And people are defending what she said. And she's absolutely wrong. It absolutely had everything to do with race. That's like saying that slavery had nothing to do with race.
right, and people, and I'll tell you, you have a right to say whatever you want, but guess what? We have the right to react to it in a negative way to say, dude, that's what you just said was pretty messed up.
That is the I'm trying not to get on a soapbox, but that is one of the major issues, especially in our country, that people think that the freedom of speech is a blanket protection. And it's like, you have the freedom of speech. You could say whatever you want to say, but you do not have freedom to the consequences of what you say.
Bam. Exactly. You can't just go, well, no, you can't. No, you can't have a bad written. No, because what you said was bad.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And, so before we start breaking one of our rules about politics,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I
because
was trying not to
I know,
not to go that way,
but I mean, it's a major news story in wrestling.
yeah,
And so it's like we try to handle it as well as what we can
yeah,
without jumping down too many rabbit holes.
yeah.
Um, maybe one day we'll start a different podcast where we can't talk about politics. But then again, we'd be sitting here for hours and hours, and eventually we got to go to work and go to sleep.
Yeah.
So
Our wives would not be happy with us.
no, they would not. Uh, excuse me. Like you said, I got the cough coming back. The weather here, like I think you said, the weather there is the same way. We are getting pounded with ice right now. I actually worked from home because my the two vehicles we have in my driveway right now are one of our cars and one we borrowed because my one car is still in the shop.
Mm.
They are encased in ice right now. I can't even get into a vehicle to try to drive it out of the driveway. So even if I were to get inside, well, the tires are still in case they will not move.
Yeah.
And then,
Savannah went and checked the mail earlier and couldn't because the mailbox is frozen shut.
oh, our mailbox apparently got knocked off the pole at some point today.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and looks like, I mean, it didn't look like somebody bam. I mean, it looks like they probably just nicked it because everything's frozen.
Yep.
And yeah, in fact, I'll text you a picture of it right now because I took a picture and I sent it to Avery because I looked outside and I was like, what in the world is that? And I looked and I was like, oh crap, that's my mailbox. Yeah, I just texted it to you. So but yeah, so basically, I had a little bit more extra time today to start thinking about
Oh
tonight's.
wow.
Yeah, you see, I mean, it's off.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
just off. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You know what? I think I'm going to email that one to myself, and I'm going to bring the screenshot up a little bit later on. But before we get started, on the actual subject of the episode, the topic tonight, which is Brock Lesnar being bad for business, and yes, we realize we are going to make some people a little irritated.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not our jobs to make you happy.
No.
We're giving our opinions, we're telling our practice, but we're actually going to have stuff to back up what we think, because that is one thing about dwelling on myself is we will make sure that we do as much research as what we can before we start spouting stuff off.
Right.
And there we go. I just sent it. And so maybe a little bit later on before we go, yeah, I'll actually show the picture of the frozen tundra that is my front yard right now. And I mean, I walked outside before I came in the office to start the podcast. Excuse me. Ooh. And because I saw something that said it's snowing. And I would have thought, like, no, snow doesn't sound crunchy like that when it hits. That's ice or freezing rain, possibly sleet.
I think actually here now, I think if the snow hasn't started, it is supposed to start in the next couple of hours. So So now that we got this blanket of ice, we're gonna get snow on top of it.
Yeah, just absolutely nasty. But before we get started, I want to go ahead and give our contact and listing info. If you'd like to email us, which somebody did, and Meathead emailed us, you can always email us at armchairbookingpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/armchairbookingpodcast. Please do not troll us whenever you make comments. That's something we appreciate.
Yeah.
You can also find us on Instagram at Armchair Booking. You can find us on Twitter at Booking Armchair. You can find us on TikTok, which made another video today.
I hadn't had the chance to watch that one yet.
It's just an announcement of this podcast here.
Oh, okay.
And actually, I have something else to announce about it as soon as I get done with this. You can find us on any audio platform that's out there. If we're not on there, let us know. And yes, iHeartRadio, you'll still suck. So actually, you know what? If y'all use iHeartRadio, if you want to use them, listen to us, just don't bother. Go to Apple, go to Google Podcasts, go to Spotify, go to Stitcher,
Amazon Music.
Yeah, Amazon Music is also a really good one. I like them. Go to one of them. Don't use iHeartRadio. Go to Podbay. That's another one. Podbay, and there's some of the ones that I actually keep track of. Pocket Casts. That's one. Good Pods is another one.
Okay.
You can find us in all those. Good Pods, they actually kind of try to focus more on indie podcasts, which right now we are considered an indie podcast.
Right.
Because we don't have a huge listener base yet. But you can always go to them and listen to us. And Block Talk Radio is who we pay to host us every month. And I personally like their service. And we are also on YouTube. Obviously, if you're watching us, you already know that.
Yep.
If you have not watched us on YouTube, I usually try to have the links in the description where you can go directly to the video. Or you can go directly to the YouTube channel where you can actually do a search. I actually have a playlist. It's actually called Armchair Booking Podcast. So you can actually just go to that and pick and choose which episodes that you want to listen to, or in this case, watch.
Right.
And I'm just going to warn you right now, if you're listening and not watching, we're not pretty. We have not been pretty in a very long time, if ever. We wear matching shirts. I mean, come on, but that's what you got to watch this for, the matching shirts.
Yep.
And if you would like a shirt of your own, then what you can do is go to tpublic.com/user/armchairbookingpodcast. And you too can have your very own shirt or mask or wall art or notebooks or mugs. I have a mug, I have a mask, and I also have a phone case. And I can tell you the phone case and the mug, I mean, they're all actually good quality.
Cool.
And yeah, so, and I posted a picture of myself today and my son working side by side because they had a remote learning day because of all the ice. And so my wife, she actually got a picture of us, but I'm actually holding the mug. I mean, because I use it every day now for my coffee. And it's about a 16-ounce mug, in case you're wondering. And I know that just because I put in 2 8-ounce coffees, from the Keurig, and I put in 2 8 ounces. Yeah, I went all the way to the top, so I have to do an 8 and a 6 because I mean it's a little, it starts spilling out, and it's not.
Yeah.
Fun. But I do believe I have covered everything.
Yeah, I believe so.
And I'm going to give a shout out again to the TNC Sports Talk /Jay and Trey podcast, because they have been so wonderful. When I mentioned us about the TikTok, they said, "Hey, we want to help you get to 1,000 followers." And so they are, Trey himself actually contacted me because they said, "Hey, we'll let you borrow Trey for 3 weeks." And I said, "Well, that kind of sounds like human trafficking, but we'll go with it." And so, but Trey, he's already started trying to help us out because he actually got them to 1,000 followers within like 2 weeks.
Man.
Yeah. So he wants to do whatever he can to help us out. I know some other people from other podcasts. Well, one person, he doesn't have a podcast. He has his own TikTok channel with over 1 million followers, and he's been on our show before, and he started liking our videos too. So,
Cool.
he might be helping us as well. And the guys from the True Crime Casts and also the Bless Their Hearts podcast, they actually do both. I've been chatting with them, and I might at some point I'm supposed to go back on their podcast, um, but they hit some snags like health wise with them and their families, and
Right.
so they had a lot of delays, and uh, so they're finally getting back into the swing of things. Thankfully, I mean, they're just great guys as well. And so we've been getting a lot of support from everyone, and we are extremely grateful. So thank you
Yes,
to
we are.
everybody.
Thank you.
So, yeah, but one person I'm not grateful for being in there is Brock Lesnar.
Me either. And like you said earlier, we did receive an email um, to the podcast email address stating how that we have believe how it was worded was an unjustified bias against Brock Lesnar.
Something like, yeah, unjustified Brock Lesnar bias.
Yeah. Uh, my thing is, and we've said this before numerous times whenever we discuss Brock Lesnar, I don't know Brock Lesnar as a person. I'm not attacking Brock Lesnar
Right.
as a person. I'm not attacking Brock Lesnar, the character. My issue is the booking. When you are consistently sacrificing your entire locker room to push this less than part timer to the top of your card every time he decides to show back up, you are doing damage to your own business. That is not a great business model. That is not how you build new stars. That is not how you keep your ratings up, because people can believe what they want. Brock Lesnar is not a needle mover like he used to be.
Nope.
When he first came back in 2012, yes, every week the ratings went up because he had been gone for 8 years. People wanted to see what he was going to do. People wanted to see what he was going to say. People were going to see, they were wanting to get these fresh matchups and stuff, which we didn't end up getting. But that's what got the ratings up now. But he's not making a difference in Raw's ratings.
Nope.
Or SmackDown's ratings, really. I mean, their ratings are pretty much the same whether he's on the show or not. So he's not helping with that aspect. He's not on the list of highest merchandise movers.
In fact, let me share my screen again.
Yeah. Steve sent this to me earlier today.
Sure did. Here are your top merchandise money movers right now. This was just published. I Googled merchandise WWE like top ones, and this literally just came out like a few days ago.
And if you notice, the top mover, Stone Cold Steve Austin, at over $3.5 million worth of merchandise for a man who has not wrestled in
about 15 years, 16,
16 years now.
Yeah. And then Cena.
Yeah.
Alexa Bliss, she's the highest active member.
Uh-huh. Yep.
NWO. Are you kidding me? I mean,
yeah. Roman Reigns.
The Rock, who's not active.
Right.
Jimmy
the Ultimate Warrior, who's
dead. Eddie Guerrero, dead.
Yeah. Mick Foley, not active. $1 Million Man,
this
not
one's
active.
actually a little surprising. $1 Million Man. I mean,
yeah.
Taker.
Undertaker, retired.
Savage.
Randy
dead.
Savage. Yeah.
Hogan racist jerkhole.
Yep.
Anyway, McIntyre, which I wish McIntyre was high. I like McIntyre. Michaels, not active. Kane, mayor. Sasha Banks, active. Becky Lynch, active.
Mm-hmm. No Brock Lesnar on that list, which tells you he is not moving the needle, especially on merchandise. So
I mean, this kind of feels like in Shrek 2, where he's talking to the fairy godmother, who's also Prince Charming's mother, and she's like, "Oh, this story here, no ogre. This story here, no ogre." I'm not seeing Brock anywhere on here.
No.
So if he's supposed to be the needle mover, he would be on this list.
Yep.
And I looked at the WWE shop. Yes, they have a lot of stuff for people to buy, including the Suplex City shirts. You can have a custom made Suplex City shirt with West Paducah put on it. Now, I don't know why you do that.
Right.
You know, ruin the good name of West Paducah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you would think if he's the big needle mover, he would be on here. And one of the things, and I know this goes back 2 years, when he was the WWE champion, and they said he's going to enter the Rumble #1, and he's going to walk out, as the winner. Well, the first 13 people, boom, they were out because they had to have him break that record.
Yep.
And then Ricochet came in, and followed by McIntyre. Ricochet, of course, gave him the low blow.
Yep.
And then McIntyre did the Claymore kick, boom, out. That pop was huge.
Yes.
They were not booing. They were cheering because Brock Lesnar was knocked out.
Yep.
That's not someone to build your company around.
And there are, I mean, yes, Lesnar has his fans. Usually those fans are the fair weather fans. I mean, they only show up when like Lesnar's there. They're not the fans that watch the product every single week or go to the live events and things like that. And and yes, Lesnar does get cheered, but at the end of the day, people know what they're getting. They know that they're getting somebody who's only there part-time. Is he a brilliant businessman? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because
I'm not going to hate him for that.
Yeah, I'm not going to turn. I don't blame him. I'm not turning down that kind of money either if it's offered to me. But at the same time, from WWE's business standpoint, they look at it like they need Brock to make money. If you invest the kind of time and money that you put into Brock Lesnar into your full-time stars, you would be able to build new stars that people would rally behind, because there's lots of talent there that fans love anyway. Just put more time into them instead of WWE is just too concerned about a quick fix. They see a problem with ratings or live attendance being down or whatever. Oh, Brock Lesnar's the Band-Aid. He's not. That's not going to fix your problem. That's just adding to your problem. It's the same thing as when you brought Ronda Rousey back because you think that that's going to be a shot in the arm for business. Short term, maybe, but business isn't built on short term. Business is built on long term, and you've got to make good long term decisions. We've seen other companies in the past make great short term decisions, but didn't plan for the long term. Going back as far as Jim Crockett Promotions. Had the best at that time. They had the best talent roster on the planet. Nobody could touch them as far as talent goes, but their business decisions were all short-term minded. So they didn't make those business decisions based on the long term, and it ended up costing them their business.
Lesnar to me is the equivalent of a payday loan.
Yep.
You need that money now. Boom, they'll give it to you now. However, when you pay them back, it's going to be about 25% interest.
Exactly. You're going to pay for it in the end.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, it's a Band-Aid fix. And some of the notes, like I said, I mean, that's all bullet points that I have just on this. We've actually already covered a couple of them, but he's paying way too much for somebody who's just working part-time. And why put the company's future on the back of someone who's not even guaranteed to stick around? I mean, how many times has he left? He goes back up to his farm in Canada. And we just showed, despite rumors to the contrary, he does not move merchandise.
No.
The 2 moves of doom get old. Yeah. And for everybody who, criticizes Cena's 5 moves of doom, Brock only has two moves. He has the German suplex. Well, he has a suplex. He may vary it, but he has mostly the German and the F5, and
Yeah.
that's it. And by the way, I will defend the real quick the author of the email. He's actually not a fair weather wrestling fan, but most of the ones who are all about
Yeah,
Brock
he's
are.
he's yeah, he's an exception to that rule, but a lot of these Brock Lesnar fans,
Yeah.
they're just they're just for the here and now. But
Mhm.
when Brock leaves, so are they. So you're not bringing in any permanent new eyes on your product.
Right. They're going, and they leave the arena. They're going back to the fraternity they live in. A lot of it's a bunch of frat bros.
Yeah. And the
And
thing is, another thing is, you cannot build your company around someone who is pushing mid 40s.
right.
He is in phenomenal shape, but the human body can only hold up to that for so long. But even Brock is eventually his body is going to give out on him. It
Yeah.
happens. It happens to every wrestler at some point in their life. Their body's just like, I can't do it anymore. Then what do you do when you put everything into this part timer, and then he can't go anymore, and you haven't built anybody else up?
Yep. Because you're focusing so much
Mm-hmm.
on this person who's only there part time anyway, and you've been neglecting and ignoring your other people who you should be building up. Because when I hear the question, well, who else is they going to put in there? Well, that's their fault for not building the people.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Even John Cena has said that is the
Mhm.
biggest mistake that WWE has made. He's like, he said when I was still wrestling full time, he said the biggest mistake that they made is that they did not build any future stars.
Right.
He said we've relied so much on part timers for the last 10, 15 years that there are no new stars built. Because
Yeah.
I mean, Becky's not a new star.
Nope.
Sasha, Charlotte, Roman. I mean, Roman's fantastic, don't get me wrong, but you've still got to build to the future, and they're not doing that.
Right.
And you can't do that when you're feeding your whole roster to Brock Lesnar.
Yeah. Because he will leave eventually.
Mhm.
And by the way, Cena, when he leaves, he goes and makes movies.
Yeah,
Brock is out there making movies.
yeah,
Cena is also doing. I mean, everybody knows about Cena and the Make a Wish Foundation. What's Brock doing?
yeah. Brock goes home and hunts.
Yeah, he goes home and hunts. I mean, hey, more power to him. I mean that's what he wants to do. Hey, you be you. And apparently, he was also working at a butcher shop at some point,
Yeah,
which was kind of odd. But I'm like I said, you be you. But he's not good as a face because you can just it just does not feel sincere.
no, I mean, because nothing about his character screams face. It screams bully.
Right.
I mean, he's supposed to be the face, and he was bullying Paul Heyman. He was trying to bully Bobby Lashley on Raw Monday night, which
God, that
was
ain't gonna
not
work.
that wasn't working well. Uh, but storyline wise, bullied his way into the Elimination Chamber match without having to qualify like everybody else did. Um, it's like none of that screams babyface to me, and that's always been a WWE problem too. Is that their baby faces get away with more bad guy tactics than the heels do.
Hmm.
And but Brock is definitely not. No, he's not a face.
Well, and because I believe it was at the day one premium live event when he came out of the ring and he took the selfie with the fan, and people were, oh, he must have changed. He did one selfie
Yeah.
once in a row. Does not impress me.
Yeah.
And because he's shown in the past, and he's actually said in the past, he was on Steve Austin's his Broken Skull podcast, and he said, "I don't like people. I'm a hole, and I admit it."
Yeah.
And that's
He
something
said he
else.
doesn't like people. He said he wants to get on his jet and go home to his ranch.
Yeah, and and he was being very. That's one time he was being very sincere,
Mhm.
and he does not know how to control his mouth because yes, I do realize AEW, they drop S bombs, left and right,
Mhm.
and which they've actually caught criticism for that. It's like, hey, okay, you're going a little overboard, but he was getting the crowd into a chant the other
Yeah.
night. You
My
know,
yeah, but the thing is, it's like AEW has never marketed themselves as being a PG company,
right,
and that's where the hypocrisy comes in for WWE because it's like you can't push all these narratives of be a star and we're not going to bully people, and even though the company is ran by the biggest bully in the history of pro wrestling, Vince McMahon,
oh, very arguably, yes, sir.
um, you can't be like, oh well, we're gonna
You froze.
everything we're
You froze
everything's
for a second. You said we're gonna,
uh,
and then you
uh,
froze.
like when they're talking about like being PG and they're trying to, oh, we're gonna think about the kids in the audience and blah 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 blah, and then you got Brock starting a swear chant, and it's like if you want to take your kids to the show knowing that that's going to happen, okay, but don't pretend like, oh well, this character is such a good guy, but then this
He's
is how
doing
he
that.
behaves. This is
Yeah.
how he behaves, and it's like it just,
Oh, and not only that, but his promos, everything. Oh, his promos are great. His promos are average.
yeah, it's
You
an
know,
average promo. It's like that's why Heyman was there.
yeah, and he can only be used in short matches because we showed. Oh, he was blown up
Hmm.
against Lashley, and Lashley was not blown up.
No.
I mean, he may be. If he was, he didn't show it.
Mm-mm.
Um, but Brock's matches are generally mediocre. They're not good matches.
Well,
You
that's
know,
the thing. That's another thing with with Brock versus Bobby. Bobby's there every week
yeah,
wrestling. He's doing the house show loops, and he's going to different towns and things. Brock's just doing like I don't think Brock is doing any house show loops, so he's just doing TV and pay per view.
and Brock,
And
he's not even really wrestling on TV.
no, he's basically just beating up whoever they throw in the ring against him. You know, like poor Sami Zayn, they fed Sami Zayn to him, they fed the Usos to him, stuff like that. But yeah, he's not really wrestling unless it's on pay per view. So
Right,
it's like you can't you can't have good cardio when you're not putting in enough work.
right. And and by the way, here's one thing I will say about Triple H. I'll give him props. Yes, it was annoying that Triple H had the longest match of ever WrestleMania for like 10 years in a row.
Hmm.
His matches were all 30 minutes at least.
Hmm.
But what does that say? The man can go 30 minutes like it
Yeah,
was nothing.
yeah, he had the cardio to pull it off. Like you said, it got annoying
Yeah,
because especially later years, the match quality just wasn't very good. But he could still, I mean, he still had the cardio to go. But
right. And Brock does not. I mean, it's become very obvious because I was even thinking about, okay, what's the longest match I've really seen him in? And I got to thinking about um the WrestleMania in Dallas. Was it 32?
hmm
And it was him in that street fight against Dean Ambrose. And
oh yeah, the one-sided street fight because Brock didn't want to do
yeah,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah,
And that's something else. I mean, if all his matches are squash matches, you're not going to want to watch it. Hogan, for all his faults, and his matches were formulaic, but you would actually you could believe he was going to get beat because he would have, somebody like One Man Gang or somebody like Bundy.
yep,
Not Rick Rude because Rick Rude was actually going to beat him for real.
yeah,
But against that, but he would always Savage or not Savage Hogan always had to make that comeback
yeah,
because I mean you were thinking, oh no, Hogan's going to get beat, and all of a sudden he'd Hulk up and there you go. Yes, it was formulaic. Yes, it was predictable, but
see, when my brother and I were kids, he was a huge Hogan fan, so he was always like, oh no, Hogan's going to get beat, and I'm like, please let Hogan get beat. And then he'd make the comeback, and I'm like, he'd hulk up, and I'm like, oh, here we go again.
Well, Terrence being a huge Hogan fan, to be honest with you, Terrence is like a huge everything though. So Terrence is just huge. We need to get Terrence on the show sometime.
Yeah.
We really do, but because I think that'd be an absolute great show. And I
Yeah.
know Terrence, his wrestling mind is also
Mhm.
pretty expansive. But said if he's the biggest star right now, the company's in trouble, and part of a wrestling organization cannot be built around an attraction.
Exactly.
No company was ever centered around Andre for a reason.
Yeah.
And having the short-term fixes, having your payday loans at your 25% interest, having your band-aids, eventually you're going to have to fix whatever's underneath that band-aid.
I mean, they never built the company around the Undertaker. The Undertaker was an attraction. Even
Right.
when it got to where the Undertaker was putting on 4 and 5-star matches on a regular basis, he was still a special attraction.
Yeah. And I even said not fan friendly. And it's not a matter of who they created, it's who they push. Oh, and him not being fan friendly, even though they're trying to push him as a face.
Hmm.
Do you remember what happened with Lex Luger when all of a sudden he went from being a narcissist to what was he, the All American Lex Luger, which made zero sense whatsoever.
Because there was no build for that. It's just Vince saw a muscular blonde-headed guy and it's like, oh, well, I can turn him into the next Hogan since Hogan's gone. And nobody was buying it.
Yeah. And Luger at the time was not a friendly person.
No.
And he'll even tell you that at that time.
At that time, he was not.
He has actually turned his life around quite a bit now. They said the people, like a lot of wrestlers, who, they stay in contact with him. They say he is complete 180 from the way he was before.
Yeah, I've seen some interviews like in the last few years with him, and it seems like he really has. It's just sad that his life had to take the turn that it did
right.
in order for him to make that change.
And he made some poor decisions. I mean, we'll just kind of don't want to get too much into the weeds on that because we could spend an entire episode about Lex Luger and the turnaround.
Yeah.
But I mean, I actually would not mind meeting Lex Luger just, because I believe he's also in a wheelchair now.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. So if that says anything about, some bad things that happened, to him causes some decisions, but he'll even tell you he's now I believe he's a born again Christian, and I believe he is a motivational speaker.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. And he believes what he's saying. And so that's why, in other words, why people, they genuinely like him now, because he's not just up there throwing lines. He actually believes what he's saying.
Right.
Like I said, and we speak this, it's not a matter of who they created, it's who they push. And because they're just pushing Lesnar, even though they have other people who are waiting, and they've been waiting too long for their turn. And then they're saying, release me, I'm out.
Yeah. But okay, we've discussed the Attitude Era, a lot of that. I've been going back watching some of that the last couple of weeks to see what I can pick out that still holds up, other than pretty much, Rock and Austin. There's a few other things. I don't know why everybody is so adamant about the Attitude Era coming back, because a lot of that does not hold up well today. But you look at the stars that were made because then WWE was in a position to where they had to make new stars, because WCW was going to put them out of business if they didn't do something. Look at the stars that ended up being created: Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H, Undertaker, Kane, Mick Foley. Just look at the main event scene alone compared to now. And it's like, their problem is, ever since they bought WCW, it's like, oh, well, we don't have to do any of the things that made us the top company in the world because we have no competition. So even now, AEW, yes, they are knocking on the door, but it's still going to be several years before they are legitimate competition for WWE. But WWE is still looking at it like this is 2001, and I bought WCW and I bought ECW, and I can do whatever I want because it doesn't matter. Is how I think
Right.
they look at it, and it's like, oh well, I'm going to push Brock and I'm going to push Ronda and I'm going to push Goldberg ahead of an entire roster of people, while on the same, at the same time, we're going to record a record $1 billion in revenue by releasing over 100 people in a year.
And we also talked about that. And I meant to make a screenshot of that to show it. You sent me the article about they just said their quarterly earnings,
Mm-hmm.
and of course my response to them about their quarterly, they keep making record quarterly earnings every time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you are constantly releasing people off your roster and that's how you're meeting your quarterly earnings,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a good business model, because eventually
Nope.
you're going to run out of people.
Yeah.
Now Grant releasing Shane, now I'm pretty sure his paycheck was pretty big.
Yeah, I'm sure it was pretty big, but I mean, Shane on his own is a multimillionaire from from the TV stuff he was doing in China.
Right.
So even with Shane gone, it's like you can't get. I don't understand getting on conference calls and bragging about year-end revenue, and like I said, the year-end revenue was over $1 billion, and I don't understand. Even I would not have the gall to even release that to the public, knowing I've just fired over 100 people
Mm-hmm.
to pad my books.
And it wasn't just wrestlers either.
No,
It was backstage people.
it was backstage people. It was executives.
Mm-hmm.
It was referees, um, producers, office executives, things like that. It's like they release everybody that Nick Khan saw on a spreadsheet that was like, oh, well, there's some money we can free up. Gone.
Yeah. And I don't know if the executives and the admins and like the agents, like William Regal,
Mm-hmm.
does he have a 90-day no compete?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because he wasn't a wrestler,
Right.
and he was also working with NXT anyway, so maybe it's a
Mm-hmm.
30-day not compete. But does he even have that?
Yeah.
And so they're just taking these people out and they're making this money. And part of that, I'm gonna have to look and find how much Brock Lesnar is making every year. I mean, it's around $10 million last I saw.
Let me see if I could.
Okay, yeah,
see
go
if
ahead,
it's
Google and see if you can find it. And actually, while you're doing that, I'm gonna share my screen one more time. I'm getting pretty good at that. And this is my mailbox. Now, because I looked down, I'm like, huh. So I'm thinking that somebody tapped it and it just, because when I put it back on and I was trying to slide it back on, part of that's broken off. So it's right now, it's kind of there. I kind of put it on there. It'll probably be falling off on the ground again tomorrow. But as you can see, my driveway is ice. The road is ice.
Mm-hmm.
The field across the street is everything is encased in ice. So
Brock Lesnar's salary is $12 million.
12 million. Oh, so he makes $1 million a month.
Yep.
And he wrestles once a month, if that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure their payday, and that's their base, that's his base salary. I'm pretty sure their payday in Saudi is going to be even more, because
I'm sure.
Yeah, because they do make bonuses, those are things, but
yeah, here's a breakdown. Brock Lesnar is 45 years old, by the way. He makes $12 million a year, which breaks down to $1 million a month, $230,769.23 a week, $46,153.85 a day.
In other words, in the time it took us to record this podcast, he's made enough to buy a nice used car.
Yes. Yes.
So
I mean, in a day, he is making more money than a lot of people make in a year.
He is making about $1,800 an hour,
Hmm.
and that's based on a 24-hour day. But still,
Yeah,
if you
but
break
still.
into an 8-hour day, he's making
Hmm.
about $6,000 an hour,
Hmm.
at least, or somewhere between 5 and 6 thousand an hour. That's ridiculous for somebody who does not wrestle that much.
Yeah. Yep.
And he negotiated it. And like I said, we do not have a bias against Brock Lesnar, the person. We do not like how he's being booked over everyone else who deserves it. And yes, the people do deserve it. They're not being spotlighted because the people who are responsible for training them have not been actually training them and setting them up for success. All they're focused on is their favorite teacher's pet.
Well, their favorite teacher's pet, and then you look at NXT, and they are trying to go back to the land of the giants, and that era of wrestling has gone. I mean, you look at the big men in wrestling now. You look at Lance Archer in AEW. Guys that size, are moving like cruiserweights,
Hmm.
while Vince is trying to go back to the old model of the 7-footer that doesn't leave his feet. And it's like that. It's like, what wrestling are you watching? It's like, are you watching old wrestling tapes thinking that's still going to work? Because apparently you're not watching, current professional wrestling around the world. And that's the difference between, like, I feel that with Vince McMahon's influence and Triple H's influence, because Triple H watched wrestling from everywhere.
Hmm.
And you could tell that by the people that he signed to NXT. He watched wrestling from all different, different countries, different types, everything. And Vince is just like, oh, well, we're just gonna, oh, that guy's 7 feet tall and built like a tree. So there's my next main event guy.
And right now, he's not even doing that right. He
No.
has three legitimate 7-footers,
Hmm.
and two of them are from the same country.
Hmm.
To me, it would be put them as a team, unless they think they don't have chemistry together. I mean, that's something that
Yeah.
you just don't know until you get them in the ring. But he has Almost from Nigeria. He has Aziz from Nigeria slash Poland, which I still think is like one of the weirdest combinations ever because
Hmm.
those two countries are nowhere near each other. And then you have Shanky from India. And along with Shanky, Jinder Mahal is not 7 foot tall, but Jinder Mahal has a great look.
Hmm.
And he has a pretty decent skill set. And
Yeah.
like I said, I just wish he would stay with the Cobra Clutch and not take them and and do whatever. I was like, Cobra Clutch is good enough, dude. Just leave. Yeah, I mean, you're strong enough. I mean,
Yeah.
and but Jinder was not in the Rumble.
Yeah.
Aziz not in the Rumble. Shanky not in the Rumble. Cesaro,
Not in
who
the Rumble.
Cesaro is a crowd favorite.
Hmm.
Uh, when I went to a SmackDown taping, and this shows how long ago this was now, it was on a Tuesday in Cincinnati, and I'd have to try to find the actual dates for it, but um, there was some guys behind me, and it's kind of funny I say frat boys. They were all from is either Cincinnati or Xavier,
Hmm.
the two universities. Um, but they were like huge Cesaro people, because and when Cesaro was involved in I think it was a 6-man match. And well, the corner that they were positioned at happened to be like right where we were at.
Hmm.
Um, and they kept cheering. So finally, he turned around and kind of looked at him,
Hmm.
and kind of gave him a smile, like, "Yeah, there we go." But Cesaro has been a crowd favorite for a while now, ever since
Yeah. Hmm.
when he'd won the Andre the Giant Memorial. That's when I
Hmm.
first noticed him.
Yeah.
And Vince, well, I don't see anything in him. Everybody else does.
And that is the problem. Then that is where nothing is going to change in that company as long as Vince McMahon is running the show, because everybody's at the hostage of a madman,
Hmm.
because it's his way or no way, and he doesn't, like he said, he doesn't see anything in Cesaro, he doesn't see anything in Shayna Baszler, And it's like, I don't understand how you can look at a lot of these athletes and say that you don't see anything in them when your fan base is telling you what they like. And for someone who says that they always listen to what the fans want and give the fans what they want, no, he does not. They absolutely do not. Vince does whatever he wants because he's always thought that he knows what we want better than we do.
And like I said, Brock got eliminated from the
Mhm.
Royal Rumble in 2020. The arguably the loudest pop of the night, the only one that came close, may have beaten it, was when Edge returned, because
Mhm.
that was extremely unexpected.
Yeah.
So, but those were the two biggest pops of the night.
Mhm.
And so people, they were not booing when he got eliminated. They were cheering
Yeah.
hard.
Just like if you notice when Lashley beat him for the title,
Boom.
people were cheering.
Listen to him.
People were cheering Bobby Lashley for beating Brock for the title.
Yep. And Bobby, they were trying to position him as a heel.
Mm-hmm.
No, they cheered when he won. And then when he came out Monday night, he was high-fiving fans. Bobby
Mhm.
was.
Yeah. Well, he was
And
high fiving fans when he had the when he got the title
yeah,
and was going down the ramp, he was high fiving fans and fans were cheering him on. And it's like the fans will tell you, they always have,
mhm,
will tell you who they like and who they don't. And the fans will tell you when you're making a bad decision. And I know there's a section of fans out there that are just trying to get themselves over, but they don't speak for all of us who have been fans of this sport since we were small children.
mhm. And yeah, end of the day, moral of the story, I will argue this till the cows come home. Don't troll me about it though, because after a while that will also start to irritate me, and I'll start
Mm-hmm.
deleting comments. And
Yep.
Brock Lesnar, at the being the focal point, is bad for business. It is
Mm-hmm.
bad for long-term business. He is the short-term payday loan. Ronda Rousey, same thing. She is a short-term payday loan that you're gonna have to pay back quickly, and you'll be paying back with a lot of interest. And
Mm-hmm.
now you're gonna be back in the same boat you were before. You're not gonna have the money, and next thing you know, you're getting another loan. Next thing you know,
Yeah.
you're getting another one.
Mm-hmm.
Those things happen. That's what Brock and Ronda are.
Mm-hmm.
And we could have
Yep.
another episode on Ronda Rousey at a future date.
Yeah.
Once they figure out what they're going to do with once WrestleMania happens, then we can
Yeah.
go. They made a good decision, or they didn't make a good decision, in our opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but and I think that's about all we can say about that, because then we're going to start getting ourselves worked up in a frenzy,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we're going to have a riot in our own house again, like we did the other day. So, this weekend there is a NWS show scheduled in Ludlow. I am planning on going to it. I'm planning on taking my son. If the weather is as bad then as what it is right now, I will not go to it, because
Mm.
it's 45 minutes away, and I'm not going to
No,
risk.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't risk it. I don't blame you. I wouldn't risk it either.
Yep. Especially when part of the drive means I'm driving across a bridge across the Ohio River.
Ah,
Yeah. And
there's a bridge. There's a bridge near us. It's called the Brookport Bridge. It goes into Illinois, and they've shut it down until further notice because of all the ice.
Oh, that one also goes across the Ohio River, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And and actually, to be honest with you, in Cincinnati, there are a lot of bridges that go across.
Wow.
Wow. Hold on. It's like I'm back on an Air Force base, waiting for the planes to fly overhead. When the
I
jets
mean,
are,
I expected that to be me because I live next to the pretty much next to the airport.
yeah. Wow. I don't know who that was, but man, you need to go check your muffler or something. Good Lord. But anyway, but yeah, there's actually quite a few bridges that go cross over from Cincinnati or the Cincinnati area over to
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky, like into Newport, like into we're close to Ludlow, Florence, and places like that. So there's more than one bridge. However, I'm pretty sure they're all going to be kind of treacherous,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah,
actually
I'm
doing
sure.
it, coming back would be at night.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and now Ludlow, I mean, is a very interesting venue. I've sent you pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And it has like a Fight Club feel to it.
Oh
It,
really?
it Are they coming back? Serious? Okay, I thought it was it sounded like a motorcycle actually. I'm like,
Yeah.
who's gonna be dumb enough to ride a motorcycle out here? Because you saw what the road looked like.
Hmm.
That was bad. But anyway, um, but with Ludlow, the theater that's there that they have their matches in, there is no bad seat. It's another one of those kind of cases. I mean,
Oh, okay.
even like the back row, you're
Hmm.
still like 20 feet away from the ring.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a pretty intimate setting, and I'd like they're going to have some good matches. The fact they just signed King Titan against Pompano Joe. Pompano Joe, he's an older veteran.
Hmm.
He always has good matches. Um, and King Titan, I mean, you've
Hmm.
seen some of the footage of him. He's actually pretty
Yeah.
good. He, like Drew said, he's a bully.
Hmm.
Um, but I expect Mr. J to probably get involved in some of that. And me, in my educated opinion, I have been around the world and I have seen deceptions. I used to work in military intelligence, and so I learned how to research things. My educated, world traveled opinion, Mr. J, totally not juice.
No, no, not
Not
at
at
all.
all. Not
Not
at
at
all.
all.
I mean, there's a picture of them together.
Yeah, I've seen it.
So I mean, yeah, so just let you know, Mr. J, not juice.
Mm-mm.
So, but anyway, besides that, I have no idea what we have on foot for Monday because, like I said, right now but we're trying to talk. Do you mind?
I wonder if somebody's trying to run a snow blower or something.
Well, it's all ice,
It's
so
all ice, so yeah,
yeah.
that ain't gonna work.
Uh, okay, are y'all done now? So I can continue with my podcast. I need to put like a red light outside recording, but
Quick.
then somebody would
Oh
be
yeah.
loud just
Yep.
because. um, but with COVID being very unpredictable and we've had to cancel some shows last moment, that's why we're not going to make like any announcements as far as what we're going to record.
Hmm.
Just because it happens.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I think we've kind of made our piece. We've kind of given our 2 cents about the whole Brock Lesnar thing and why it's not just that we just don't it has nothing to do with personal feelings about him. I don't know him as a
Right.
person. We just know what he's being portrayed as when the character's being portrayed as. We just don't think it's a positive move. And there's a lot of reasons why we don't think it's a positive move.
Right.
And the fans don't think it's a positive move. Most of the fans cheer when he gets beat. That's not a
Hmm.
face.
Mm-mm. Nope.
So anyway, my friend, do you have anything else?
No, I think we've covered everything.
Yep, everything we covered tonight. Well, our voices are still holding out. So
Yeah.
yeah, and so before whoever it is that keeps driving by here, I'm gonna go ahead and end it before they ruin another recording. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I'm gonna find out who you are. But all right, dude, I'll be
All
talking
right,
at
man.
you. All right,
All
God
right.
bless.
God bless.